Alright, welcome back guys. So today we'll be looking at the 2019 MacBook Pro. This is the 2019 MacBook Pro and it's got a few updated specs which we'll get into later, but I primarily bought this to do some editing work. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with my 2015 MacBook Pro, it's just that it seemed to be getting a bit slower, especially having to do with 4K footage. I found myself having to bring the playback resolution to about a quarter, which it just took away the experience, and even then it was still laggy. And since editing on the 2019 MacBook Pro, I can tell you right now, it is such a massive difference. It is such a pleasure to just edit and export. It just makes everything so much quicker. The difference is kind of like having a toaster that's only got 2 slots for your bread versus a toaster rack that's got 4. It just makes things so much quicker, and you can get to your end destination and you can eat the 4 pieces of bread at the same time as opposed to just the 2. I decided to upgrade a couple of the main features on the new MacBook Pro, seeing as I didn't want to keep doing this further down the track and just to future-proof it a little bit. You'd definitely rather invest in something good now rather than having to fork out the same amount of money in about 2 years' time just so that you can future-proof it for better specs. First and foremost, the base that I chose was the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the 2.3 GHz 8-core processor and 1TB of storage. I didn't bother to upgrade the processor because the difference wasn't really enough to warrant the $300. I decided to go for the 64GB of RAM and upgraded to the 8GB graphics card. The graphics card is probably one of the first things that you should be looking into upgrading, especially if you're doing editing work. So those are pretty much the main features that I decided to upgrade with the new MacBook Pro. It's really great now that the base model starts at 16GB of RAM, which will tie you through for any productivity stuff like using Microsoft Word, Excel, browsing the internet, watching videos, things like that. Then I'd really recommend to upgrade to the 32 or 64GB of RAM, especially if you're doing any multimedia work or any hardcore gaming like that. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description below that really summarizes how much RAM you need and what programs might need what. The graphics card is now actually one of the first things you want to be upgrading, especially if you've got the money and you're doing editing work. While storage, it's debatable how much you need, but it's really up to you. For me, about 1TB was enough, and making sure that it's solid state was a winner. Like I've mentioned, I've been using it for about 2 weeks as my main computer, doing anything from just pure internet browsing to watching videos online, YouTube, Facebook, and doing some really heavy 4K editing, and it's just been running really great. Though I think there's a big issue here that needs to be addressed by Apple, which is the pricing. I think because there are so many cheaper alternatives in the PC world, and just how cheap it is to upgrade everything, it just doesn't seem feasible to be spending, around $6,000 just to upgrade the very basic things that you might need for video editing or, 3D modeling, things like that. So I guess at the end of the day, you are really paying for the name. Having said that, if you don't really have any plans of doing any heavy work on your MacBook Pro and you just want to use it for everyday use, then you can definitely opt in for the cheaper versions. Now, I recently purchased the Apple Thunderbolt Display, the 27-inch one, which was released in 2011 and discontinued in 2016. And surprisingly enough, the connector on the display is not a Thunderbolt. I found this out the hard way due to a long conversation with Apple on the phone. All I needed to do was to get a mini DisplayPort to USB-C converter, as opposed to the Thunderbolt display, which was mentioned on various forums online. So just make sure that you are getting the mini DisplayPort to USB-C if you ever decide to purchase the Thunderbolt display from Apple. So all in all, I've really enjoyed my experience with the new MacBook Pro, even though I've got the 2015 one and it's doing so well by itself. I just needed a bit more power and a bit more oomph. So thanks for watching, guys. That's been my review of the 2019 MacBook Pro, and hopefully this helped you to make a decision whether or not to get it in 2020. Like and subscribe for more content very soon, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.